Hey everyone, this is Cross, and today we are going to talk about one thing that could be ruining your games. There's arguments on both sides on whether or not to hide your roles as a DM. However, unlike many other topics, this one seems to boil down to a list of pros and cons, and ultimately the advice is given whatever fits your playstyle. The Dungeon Master's Guide gives some advice on this topic, and I will touch on that towards the end. Let's talk about the two sides of the coin. People that want to show their roles often want to show to the players that everything's above board. Hey, I'm not cheating. But people that want to hide their roles don't necessarily want to cheat, but they want to make sure that the players don't figure out the modifiers of the creature or at least leave some mystery behind what's going on behind the screen. However, in most of the advice that I've ever seen, there's one thing that rarely gets talked about, and that's how the dice affect narrative tension. The moment that your players know what's going on, you're going to release the buildup of narrative tension for your readers, or for your players in this case. If you reveal your roles, the buildup of narrative tension is lost the moment your dice hit the table. They look at the number, and they're going to know the result of the narrative before you ever open your mouth. So, who is in control of your game at this point? If the dice hitting the table and revealing the result is what's driving the narrative, then the players are learning to listen to the dice and not the DM. They're learning that just rolling the dice and getting a result is what solves the narrative. The dice are running the game, not the DM. And there's a lot of players out there that just ask for a die roll to resolve what's going on instead of looking for that interaction with the DM to try and figure out a way to do it within the confines of RP. They're trying to consult the dice on how the story should go instead of trying that interaction with the DM. And they're just waiting on you to puppet an answer. If you hold the roll back, if you're holding it behind the screen, and you read and consult the dice, then you look to your players and your voice becomes the moment that the narrative tension is released. Either the narrative tension is released when the dice hit the table or when you speak. Who are they going to listen to? This puts you back in control of the game. You're in control of the atmosphere now, not the dice. And when you reveal the result of the story, your players react at that moment. And in fact, while you're talking before the reveal of what happened, the tension of your story is actually building. Consider the art of the performer. We've seen arts like this in media before. We've seen the tarot card reader. We've seen the tea leaf reader. We've seen the bones that are read. You dump the bones and look at the bones and see what's to come. We've seen several different arts like this before, both in media, mostly in media and TV, but it also existed in history. And you can also go visit tarot card readers. In visiting those, they don't just put down the cards and say, here, you read them. They're the ones that's going to read them. And it's masked behind this veil of you can't read the cards. The tarot card reader can put the card right in front of you, but you cannot interpret the card. The tarot card reader is going to do that. And so there's a screen that is between you and the tarot card reader where you can't understand the result as they are putting the card down. It is the fortune teller that's revealing the story. It's not the card, it's not the bones, it's not the tea leaves. It's the fortune teller, and that's who the audience, the people sitting at the table, are waiting to hear the story from, not the object that is used to help them assist in divining the story that they're about to tell. Think about your flow of narration for a moment. Even if you hide the roles from the players, are you keeping the results from them until a dramatically appropriate moment? The same concept applies to how you deliver your narration. You can roll a d20, look at it, and go, oh, I crit, and then begin delivering a description. The creature just does these things. The thing is by that point, you've already lost your audience. You've already given them the results of the story. You've essentially spoiled the ending for them. if you use a formula for delivering narration, such as deliver narration first and then tell them the mechanic, you'll constantly remind yourself that I need to tell the story first and then explain mechanically what just happened. So an example of that formula could be, you see the creature look towards you, and in the corner of your eye, you see your companion get hit with the arrow. You turn and look, and your eyes just divert from the creature for just a moment. It jumps to the right, takes its claw, and slashes towards you, opening your skin and delivering a massive wound. You're going to take 22 slashing damage. Notice how the crit is described. It's never mentioned that it's a crit. And notice as well that there is a pause between the description and when you actually deliver the amount of damage. That pause, you can set your expectations. You can go ahead and tell your table that you're going to be trying to leave gaps in between description and mechanics, and that is their opportunity to essentially react. That's their window of opportunity. So leaving that open gives them the chance to cancel the crit with some classes or attempt to shield. Even though it's a crit, they don't know that yet. They're just hearing that they're taking a pretty hefty wound, and they now have the opportunity to react for it. So leaving that little window gives them their reaction opportunity, and it keeps the flow of narration going without constant, all right, this is your moment to react. Is anyone going to do anything? Then there's a Jeopardy pause, and okay, let's move on. And it sort of helps with that start-stop narrative style that some people unintentionally develop. Just keeps things moving. If they don't take advantage of it, then it's too late. And the technique starts helping players pay attention and get drawn into the story more, so that they quit paying attention to their phones and start paying attention to these small windows of opportunity that they have to actually do something about it. Now, what about non-combat narration? Are you sort of revealing your roles there as well? You're attacked on the road. Okay, so as you're walking through the forest, you've already spoiled the ending. You spoiled the buildup of tension. And at that point, this description is just what happened until you got to the point you just said. Your narration is kind of backwards here. And I recently caught a stream, and I was watching a DM, and he said this. He stated, oh, you guys are attacked. Okay, so as you're walking through the forest, and he actually spent about 10 to 20 minutes sort of leading up to this point where they were finally attacked on wherever they were attacked. But the thing is he already told the players that they were attacked. At that point, if I'm at that table, I'm just preparing my mind for combat at this point. I'm not really listening. I'm not. There's nothing to engage with. There's nothing I can do to prevent the attack. There's nothing I can do to. It's already been decided. There's no input that I can put in to curb the thing, and anything at this point means, am I sort of metagaming? I don't know. The point is that the DM stated they were attacked and then went back and sort of led them up to the scene, and they were essentially just painting the scene at that point, and there was nothing the players could interact with. You need to try to keep your narration where it is in the moment from the players or the character's perspective, and allow them to sort of mitigate things along the way. And doing that is going to keep your audience drawn in. I was watching this stream, and at that point, I was just sitting, well, you already told them they were attacked. Like, I already know what's going to happen. So everything here is just, you spoiled the story. You spoiled your own story. Consider carefully how the narrative tension of your story is being revealed to your players. Is it helping you build tension, or is it just eliminating it altogether? There are several different things that you can do to help yourself with this process. One of the things is revealing hit points to your players. On virtual tabletops, you can actually reveal the hit point bar. You can reveal the number. You can just tell the players, oh, they have this many hit points left. every time you do that, you are revealing the end of the story to your players. You are circumventing the narrative tension and not allowing it to flow properly, because the players at that point can start calculating the end of the story. By hiding hit points, by keeping your rolls secret, you're becoming more in control of the story. By not saying, oh, they're at half hit points, but instead saying that blow you watched as he staggered a little from the wounds that have been delivered to them. That narrative essentially just told your table, oh, this guy's starting to get pretty hurt. This may be the first 25% of his HP or something, whatever you arbitrarily decide for that particular creature. But it's informing your players that, oh, he's starting to get hurt. Like, we're making progress. We know we're making progress. And they're listening to you for those cues verbally rather than just scanning the virtual tabletop or just looking at any sort of token markers or anything you have down. Now, sometimes fights get pretty complicated and you need to communicate a lot to your players just at a glance. And so adding this guy's injured or this guy's bloodied or whatever can be helpful. But as long as you deliver the narrative first and then put the token down, they're going to be listening to you for those things. I recently applied this sort of logic to death saving throws. I sat there and watched how players would react to death saving throws, and I would see it on other streams. I would see it in my own game, that a player would go down or a PC would go down, and you would see this sort of reaction to how players would react to death saving throws. I'm pretty sure you've probably experienced this in your game as well. A player goes down, his turn comes up, his or her turn comes up, and they roll a d20 and say they succeed. Say they roll a 15. So they've succeeded once, and they can have up to 3 failures. Okay, well then the next person's turn comes up, and they could do something about bringing that person back up, but the creature's almost dead. So instead, they're like, well, I know that they're okay right now because I just saw them roll at 15, so I'm just going to attack the creature. That's fine. We'll get you up next round. We know we at least have one round to get you up. This is actually a form of metagaming. It's not that severe, but it is. It's using out-of-game information to determine your in-character reaction. Okay? So what I did was tried an experiment. And I said, okay, from now on, when you go down, I'm going to roll all your death saving throws behind the screen. That one change made, when someone goes down, people are panicking to try and get them back up because they have no idea what I rolled. They have no idea how their friend is doing when they just got knocked out. And they could be dying right there without them knowing. And that created a very immersive and very realistic reaction to one of your friends going down. So what started happening is moments started happening where the story, they would miss a turn or something, a couple of death saving throws would happen, and they would go to heal that person. And that actually became a dramatic moment. It became a very tension-filled scene as the players were listening to the description of the heal going into their friend and waiting for that moment for their friend to wake up. And the table is sitting there going, man, I hope they're not dead. I hope they're not dead. I hope they're not dead. And then sometimes, for the most part, they were fine. But those few moments where they healed someone and they didn't get back up, those were pretty bad moments. And that tension was only available because nobody at the table knew, except for me, what the state of that person was. So, on page 235 of your Dungeon Master's Guide, there is a section called Dice Rolling. And they are talking about rolling behind a screen, keeping your players guessing, and a lot of this, again, it doesn't talk about keeping narrative tension. But one of the points here talks about rolling behind your screen lets you fudge the results if you want to. If 2 critical hits in a roll would kill a character, you could change the second critical hit into a normal hit or even a miss. Don't distort dice rolls too often, though, and don't let on that you're doing it. Otherwise, your players might think that they don't face any real risk, or worse, that you're playing favorites. Honestly, I think that is the worst piece of advice you could encourage players, especially newer DMs, to do. If you're going to roll a dice, just follow the dice. So what I'm advocating for here is roll in private so that you can keep the flow of narrative tension to your descriptions, but still roll with the narrative as if you were rolling it in front of all your players. Because the moment that they start figuring out that you're playing with the dice behind the screen and not really following what's going on, then you're going to start losing some trust. And the moment something bad does happen, you're sort of setting an expectation that you're just going to fix it. So if you don't fix it, then it's your fault that their player got injured or killed. And because you've fudged the dice before, why aren't you doing it now? I highly suggest that DMs just tell their players, I'm going to roll with the dice that's rolled. And I'm going to tell the story. If I roll a dice, I want it to mean something. Because if you're not going to follow the dice, when you roll a dice, you have a 5% chance of rolling a 20. You have a 5% chance of rolling a natural 1. You need to accept those percentages with whatever you roll. So if you don't want a natural 20 to alter a story a certain way, don't roll the dice. You might as well just say, this is what happens. And in combat, there are things that you can do to mitigate the fight, either in your player's favor or away from your player's favor. There are things that you can do. There are things that your players can do to do the same thing. And they should be utilizing those techniques of dice manipulation, such as trying to get someone to have disadvantage on the roll, versus just expecting that your DM is going to fudge the results in your favor. Character loss is part of the game, and the expectation for the narrative should be this is what's going to happen. And there are other things that you can do in the narrative other than avoiding the crit. You can say, okay, you all went down. This was the result of this fight. You all went down. I rolled a lot of natural 20s, but they're not going to kill you. They're going to do something else. And so you can kind of keep the story going in another way, but at least you stayed true to the dice. And the more that you stay true to the dice, the more trust you can start building with your players. And if you want to, even on occasion, you can just reveal the roll. You can reveal what happened narratively, and then say, you can come look at my roll right now if you want to, if you don't believe that that's what I rolled. And you do that a few times, and eventually I think players are going to stop questioning what you're rolling behind the screen, because you're not ultimately there to be against them. You're there to tell a cooperative story with them. And this technique of paying attention to narrative tension is going to help you with that process. I hope that you take more consideration into how you deliver your narrative, and just consider that this is partially a performance, and you're in the seat of the fortune teller. Let your players hang on to your words, not the dice. I hope this helps somebody, and you guys know what to do down there. We'll see you later.